Hey guys, Buckeye Bar guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, and that way, anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show. Welcome back, everybody, to Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Tonight's date is Wednesday, April 26th, 2023. And we are going to discuss some transfer portal stuff tonight. Hit up a little bit about the spring game since we haven't really talked about it yet, and then we'll finish up on some draft stuff since the draft starts tomorrow night. And obviously we got a couple Buckeyes that should be in the first round, and then some others scattered throughout the draft as we go on. So we will hit that up as the end of the show. So first things first, transfer portal. So we have a few Buckeyes hit the portal over the last 2 weeks. Jake Seibert, the kicker. Ben Christman just announced yesterday that he was entering the portal, lineman. And then, oh God, his name just slipped me. We were just literally talking about him.
Caleb Burton,
Caleb Burton, the wide receiver. He also has announced that he's going in the portal. Not necessarily a lot of surprises with some of the stuff. I guess probably the one I was most surprised on with Christman, just because it seems like that we probably have the most openings on the offensive line, and I don't think we need to get any, lose any more people there. Like the cupboard's not really full. Lose a guy, but there's some other guys around the country that are in the portal, so maybe this is an indication that Ohio State is looking very hard at the portal, and maybe he's getting some interest, and maybe he's been in the program for a few years. Maybe he just saw that the writing maybe was on the wall that they're not heading his way. Maybe things are not going in favor for him. And instead of necessarily plugging him in, they are looking outside the program to bring in a couple guys. I guess that's kind of one way maybe you can look at it. Seibert, I wasn't really. It seemed like the kid from USC that came in. Again, his name's slipping my.
Parker Lewis.
Yeah, that sounds probably right. That he it seems like that maybe he's kind of passing him up to begin with. It seems like that there's been some indication that he's possibly the go-to kicker going into the season. We've heard different things throughout the offseason so far. And with Burton, I mean, actually, I kind of said it the day of the spring game. I'm like, I bet, like, it didn't seem like we saw Burton at all. I don't know if he was hurt or not, but it was just like we were seeing some of the other guys, Carnell Tate, the Rogers brothers. You still got Ennis coming in. I mean, they're not brothers, but I'm going to call them the Rogers brothers until one of them leaves. I mean, if they both stay same class, Rogers brothers, that works for me. But Tate's obviously really pushed himself into a possibility where he could be, a rotational guy this year.
Yeah.
Sure. And you got a lot of guys back. So the mixture of all that stuff, it just seemed like, and I mean, I said to you kind of agree to me. It just seemed like to me, Burton was the one that was screaming out to me that I'm like, I bet he'll transfer. And so and that was no inside information or anything. It was just kind of a gut feeling that felt like that was the way that was going. So your thoughts on all that?
Like you said, Seibert doesn't really surprise me whatsoever. I mean, they brought in a third, fourth scholarship kicker last year, which whatever. But so, I mean, Parker Lewis obviously has a big leg. I think Seibert does too. He was a very highly recruited kicker, or at least, I don't know. Our kicker's highly recruited. I don't know. I think he had stars. He was a good kicker, but it was something that he just never made it work on the field and never kind of lived up to his potential here. So that happens. Whatever, he had to go. Ben Christman, I thought he would have been a solid piece. I mean, Matt Jones and Jackson. I mean, Matt Jones is certainly gone after this year, but there's a good chance, Jackson's gone after this year, and there's two guard spots that are open up for next year. So I don't know. I mean, he must have just not been. And, well, he was actually kind of weird to me because he's what, a 2020 kid, I think.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
been
he's been in with 2 years, I think, into the
he's been in there
program.
for a hot minute. So I mean, you you would think because he was pretty highly recruited out of Revere that you would hear more from him. At least I think I'm thinking of the right guy there, right? And
I want to
yeah,
think. I think you are right on that one.
yeah. So I mean, he was a big get. I remember talking about him, and so I mean, I'm a little. I don't want to say like I'm not disappointed in his performance, his growth or development or anything, but it's just obviously he's a little bit behind where you thought he was going to be. Um, but that happens. And, there's plenty of good talent, inside the state or other Big Ten schools. If he goes somewhere else, that he has a chance to play right away. And maybe he feels like he's developed and he's ready to go. And there's just a log jam in front of him. Um, I don't know. I mean, Ohio State, you're hoping that they recruit good competition on the offensive line. So maybe it just didn't look that promising for him to get on the field. And then Caleb Burton, I think Caleb Burton has real talent. Probably go somewhere in Texas, probably do a really good job. So, that's awesome for him.
There's
But
just a big log jam there. I mean, we've talked about it. There,
that's like
that was
really the only spot we can afford to lose people. Like I'm thinking like we still have guys that are probably coming in, but we're still over the scholarship count. I'm thinking, man, you don't want to lose any more defense. You don't want to lose defensive linemen, offensive linemen. You got numbers, but they're not great depth there. Like which ones can actually play. Like I mean, there's a couple names I probably want to see that go before Ben Christman, but they might have more tackle bodies, so maybe we actually need them. Um, but Lorenzo Styles coming in to visit this weekend to possibly be coming as a transfer cornerback. Tywone Malone, he's a defensive tackle that Buckeyes were pretty high up on a couple years ago, 2 years ago,
yeah, I
1 year.
believe so.
I mean, Buckeyes made his final five, I believe, so he's coming in this weekend. And then the name of I think it's Josh Simmons or it's something Simmons, I'm pretty sure, is coming in. He's a offensive lineman from San Diego State this
I
weekend.
saw that one.
So, I mean, if you did add any of these guys, that still keeps putting you over that scholarship count. So, I mean, the only spots you can really take away feels like receiver. I mean, running back room's pretty loaded. You hate to see any of those guys go, but
Yeah, I
that's
think we know which one. We've talked about that one before. I mean, I still have Pryor as kind of my. He's my alarm right now.
you
That
can't let. I mean, you can't let Dallin go.
I
Chip,
mean,
Chip, I like a lot. I mean, I don't want Pryor to leave, but certainly is like numbers aren't looking right there. I mean, maybe safeties, but you put three out on the field at once. I know you got a really deep safety room, but a lot of them are young. Like
you got a lot of linebackers too. That with the two coming back and kind of Hicks. I mean, you
you
kind
don't
of
want to
think of
lose Simon though. You don't. Or you probably won't lose Simon. I mean, he's
no.
at the end of his
I think
career.
he's staying. I think probably the one you'd probably be really nervous about is guys like Carrico and Powers and there that
You can't lose them. I mean, they looked okay during the spring game. I know what Dallin Hayden knocked Carrico on his ass, but Carrico got right through the line. Gabe looked good. I mean, I don't want Powers
yeah.
to go anywhere.
It's just you only have two guys out there at any one time, even at times when you might be using three. It just seems like there's a possibility of spots you could lose those guys. On the whole Crispin thing, like I said, I'm surprised about it. Just we don't have. I mean, I know there is there's depth in the room. It's just not proven depth. But he could be a Fry casualty. Like, I don't know. Fry's a new coach, came in last year, didn't recruit this kid. I don't know. Maybe maybe Justin Fry is actually some of these guys that we don't know much about. And not necessarily Fry recruited those guys neither, but maybe some of those guys are just higher on his list.
Yeah.
And, and I was kind of thinking, even though he's not going to project as a guard, maybe Luke Montgomery's impressing more people than, he's impressing people. And maybe
for sure
he could be, maybe they think he's mean enough to be a guard, at least for this year, to, that where he could put some depth, where he could play multiple positions, and maybe they're willing. Maybe he's kind of up on the higher on the totem pole right now, and they want to get him on the field, and that could be something. If Christman could see that, and that's a true freshman, and if he's going to be taking time away from him because they really want to get him on the field, then I could see that one too. I mean, so there's possibilities there, and some of these other guys might maybe maybe the what is it, Mikowski, or is that how?
Is that Mihalski?
Yeah, maybe he's not necessarily portraying himself as a tackle, and they need to bring in a couple extra tackles. But maybe some of these guys are looking better at guard. Some of the complaints we've been hearing has been more on the outside, and maybe that's where they're going to focus. They need to, they possibly need to bring in a couple guys to play tackle, but maybe a couple of these guys that we thought could play tackle are actually doing really good at guard, and they're just higher up than Christman is. And, and that could be a possibility too. And that could be where the depth needs to go. And, we'll move some of those guys inside, and then we'll bring in maybe a transfer or two, to fill out some of the outside. I mean, so there's a lot of things there. It could be, obviously they don't really get into specifics, but, so there's some speculation there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I don't think any of them are a big loss at this point. Weird, for Christman, for just the depth piece that, it seems like he really had a chance, if not this year, to next year really contribute for the team. So that's a strange one to me, but I don't think any of them are backbreakers at this point. But I mean, it's always interesting to see how these things play out, especially when you got scholarship numbers like this. I mean, I do want to say moving forward, though, man, they really got to try to find a way to balance their scholarships a little bit better. I know I'm one of those ones that are always like, I'm never going to fault Brian Hartline for signing, 5-star receivers or whatever, but you can't be this light on defense, that.
Yeah.
Or on your offensive line, like I feel like you got to be just more balanced with talent everywhere.
Yeah. I think a lot of it came into that. And hopefully things start solidifying on defense, but I think we've had so many misses on defense over the last several years is that they have openings. And we've kind of talked about this in the past. Maybe they should have used, instead of maybe bringing on a 4th or 5th wide receiver, or, another running back, or somebody that's just depth. Maybe they should have went out and went after a transfer player or two on defense,
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that's something, we kind of see how the year goes, and we'll speculate on it then.
Or not have 3 or 4 scholarship kickers at a time.
Yeah. That one always kind of threw me too, but I don't know. I'm not ready to. Seibert leaving, that kind of, fixes some of that stuff. So, sure. We don't need that many kickers. Jim Tressel ain't the coach anymore of this team.
Jim Tressel wouldn't have had that many kickers on the team. Jim Tressel would have had one reliable kicker.
I don't hate Jim Tressel. I love Jim Tressel. Buckeyes. That was my first national championship was under Tressel. I love Tressel ball. Trust me. But we don't need as many kickers.
Yeah.
Tressel probably salivated on that. It's like we have options in the kicker room.
Right. I got my kickoff kicker. I got my accuracy kicker. I got my long kicker. Yeah, he would have loved it.
Um, yeah, so yeah, we'll see how some of that stuff plays out. Spring game. So actually, we'll start with We'll start actually with the
bad and the ugly.
We'll start with the offensive line since we just finished up on the Christmas stuff, and we'll just kind of segue that into
We're
it.
gonna start with the ugly.
Yeah, because the ugly and a little bit of the bad. I mean, what can I say? And that's kind of where the Christmas stuff was like really wondering. I was a little surprised about just because I'd be like, we can't afford to lose anybody there, and so Stud kind of put us in those last couple of seasons, kind of put us in a bad spot. And we've talked about this before. Kind of feels like how we were kind of put in a bad spot in corner, kind of in different spots. But I think some of that
we weren't put in really rough spots with corners.
But I think that has outside of
that was more the coaching changing and Taver just striking out.
Yeah, Taver struck out, but we had a lot of coaching turnover there.
Yes.
Where Stud, we didn't have coaching turnover on the offensive line. And, I've always been kind of a neutral. I was always a neutral kind of person when it came to Stud because I always thought Stud had some really good classes, and I thought Stud developed his offensive line very well, also. But it just seems like the last couple seasons, you always knew he was never the most dedicated recruiter. And it kind of seemed like that his back issues and stuff was starting to kind of catch up to him on the developing part of it. And we kind of got behind the 8 ball there. And I think Fry's doing a pretty good job. It seems like we've gotten on some people that I think we could really hit on. It just, we're in kind of a 2-year gap where I don't think we got enough depth or enough quality talent to really, and that's kind of where we're at there, that there's kind of a 2-year mark in there where it's kind of hurting the line right now. And that's what we're seeing right now. So maybe they can plug and play a couple people on the offensive line through the transfer portal. It seems like they definitely need something after watching the spring game. And I know you can't 100% say, we're going to dedicate everything we saw in the spring game is what, going into the season. Don't fall down that trap. There's a lot of time to still develop and stuff like that. But there's some concerns there, and I think some of those concerns are warranted.
I mean, I will say to try to put some people's minds at ease, though, that a experienced defensive line will always make, especially with high caliber players, will always make an inexperienced offensive line look pretty bad during practice 15, the spring game. So they're always going to be well ahead of them, and it's going to be a lot easier for them than it is for the offensive line. So
yeah,
I mean, take that what you will. That might be, a little bit of copium there, but it's facts, so that it's a lot easier for a defensive lineman to just try to run by an offensive lineman, especially when it's an inexperienced guy in practice 15. So it's something that can definitely be worked on during the summer. You got 3 pretty easy games to open up the season. I mean, no offense, Indiana fans, but definitely something that you got to get together. You got to get it fixed, but it's something that that defensive line will make a lot of offensive lines probably look bad this year, and one that's not very experienced, that's still going through scrimmages and practices. Yeah, it's going to be hard for them to keep up.
Yeah. And you kind of don't want to, I mean, we've loved the passing game so much over the last several years. I would say work on run block.
You might have to work on run blocking, man, because I don't know if you have the time to pass.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And run blocking, if your guys are mean enough, run blocking is easier than pass blocking. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, people think pass blocking, all it is you just stand there. There's a lot that goes into pass blocking. Run blocking is just, you got to know who you're blocking, and then you go and, pretty much annihilate them.
Yeah.
And the ones and when you're double teaming somebody, know when to pull off of somebody to go up to the next level. I mean, it's a little bit more basic than pass blocking, where there's, much more things where you're sliding coverages too and stuff. It comes into play, and we're finding blitzers where blitzing on, even run blitzes are important, but they're not necessary. If as long as you can kind of keep the run blitzer away from your running back, push him off, that actually frees up a lineman and to go up to another level. So, it's just different run blocking to pass blocking. And from what we saw from the running backs, that is actually, when you think offensively, obviously the receiving room looks the most crisp. I mean, there's nothing to say about that. Carnell Tate just seems like another great addition to what that room could be.
Yeah, and I thought actually Gray's looked pretty good too. I don't remember if Antley played or how he looked. I felt like he broke open on one, but that might have been Keon Graves. But I thought they both looked good. Ballard, I know, almost had a touchdown, and yeah. Definitely. That's an interesting name now that I think about it, but we can save that one for another day.
But now I was I think the most impressed I was with the running back room, and even though you don't see Trey, you don't see Mayan really, but I like what I saw from Chip. I liked what I saw from Dawand, and that's why I think Pryor could be out of there. But I think they're to the point now. It's like you think about it, Trey's had some injuries over the last 2 years. Mayan's a beat up. He's had injuries, but he likes he plays beat up. I mean, it's going to be very hard to get Mayan out of there. But I saw some things now. Dallon's really looking. I mean, he looked like a rock out there. I mean, so he's definitely really bulked up in the offseason. So he's gonna bring a different type of game, I think, to it. He ran with some authority last year, and now he's going to have the body size to do it. And I really liked what I saw from Chip, and Chip already has the body. So, I think
Chip's more explosive, and it's a big back than Mayan is too.
I obviously Trey and Mayan are your go-to guys, but I feel more secure. It was funny. We were loaded in the running back room, but there was a lot of things that had made us nervous going into the spring game because, the injuries were so weird last year, and how's Dallin going to look in his second year? Is Chip ready to maybe take on more of a role if he needs to? And I'm fully secure with that room now. Now you got a lot more depth in that room, and I know it's just a spring game, but we saw, I think, enough from both of them actually in the season last year that I liked that, there's nothing going to be like, if they have to go in and start a game or play significant time, I don't think it's going to be too much for them. I feel comfortable right now. If we go back into the Georgia game and, Dallin Hayden and Chip Trainum, they could easily get the ball more than they did, in that time. They should have anyways, but I don't feel nervous about that if Trey and Mayan aren't playing a game that, we going up to Ann Arbor next year and you got to rely on Chip or Dallin Hayden, they could do it and they could go win a game for you. And so
anyways last year.
Exactly. But it is what it is. But I think the coaches are going to feel more comfortable with that. So
if this season looks like Ohio State has to get their yards, and I'm not going to say points, but if yards and a good amount of their points have to come through on the ground, and then it's like when you have to, hey, try to cover Carnell Tate, try to cover, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr., try to cover, Emeka Egbuka, to get them a first down, get a touchdown, move the chains, whatever, hell, that could be a very dangerous looking offense at the end of the day,
Yeah, and
you figure out that run game.
And that's kind of like the way right now, that's the way I'd kind of play it. I mean, you got a new quarterback starting. I know McCord's played, but and it seems like he's obviously the favorite now, with Devin Brown not playing in the spring game. He'll probably be I would say he's the odds on favorite to be the starting quarterback going into the season. Yeah. You're obviously way talented at wide receiver, but you got a new quarterback starting and you got an offensive line you need to break in. Even if they end up getting a couple guys with the transfer portal that are plug and play guys that could be starters, you still got to get them all to gel together with the interior guys. I mean, that's going to take a few games. So, rely on the running game. And I think you could rely on the running game. And like I said, running blocking, you should be able to get these guys on target with run blocking fairly quickly, as long as what I've always said about run blocking, as long as you got linemen who really love the game of football and they're really good, like they are talented players that love the game of football and they're mean. Run blocking is not a hard thing. It's like
Right.
literally, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to obviously there's some more skill going in with some of the zone blocking and stuff like that. I get that. But if it's just like, we're just playing straight up, that guy's the guy you got to go hit and push off the bling. It is what it is. And you're early in your schedule. I mean, granted, you play Notre Dame eventually. Indiana, even though, yeah, they're not, Michigan, but, they're still a Big Ten team. They're going to have legitimate players on their defensive line. Tom Allen does. His defense is normally better than his offense.
Yeah.
But they should be able to move those guys off the ball. And the other teams that they're going to play. So, early in the schedule, you should be able to play kind of smash mouth football with those running backs, in my opinion,
Right.
and ease McCord and ease those linemen pass blocking wise into the bulk of your Big Ten schedule. And you got some tough Big Ten teams that you play every year, and you're adding Wisconsin and Minnesota to that mix. So it's like it's no picnic. The Big Ten schedule is not going to be an easy run for them. So they need to get those guys kind of into the mix as much as possible, but you got to win football games too. You can't look like crap, lose a game. Like, you can afford to lose against Notre Dame, but you can't afford to lose against Notre Dame and anybody else. So
Right.
that's the way you look at it. If somehow they get upset in South Bend, I would hate it, but it is what it is. Like, you can survive that.
Well, the only thing that scares me ever with Notre Dame is, well, you got to win out. If you win out at that point, you're fine. But
Notre Dame could end up.
That always scares me about Notre Dame is them running the table and they stay in front of you.
Yeah. At that point, if Ohio State would win out, lose to Notre Dame, win out, and win the Big Ten, even if Notre Dame falls undefeated, I think then where that gets hurt is it's going to hurt a Pac-12 school. It's going to hurt a Big 12 school. It's going to hurt somebody else somewhere.
An SEC runner-up.
An SEC runner-up. I don't see a one-loss Ohio State at this point. They are such great ratings, especially a one-loss Ohio State that wins the Big Ten. Like, if they win the Big Ten, they beat everybody else on their schedule, and they have a good schedule. They can afford a loss in that schedule as long as they win the Big Ten. I mean, last year they didn't even win the Big Ten. So.
Right. No, I know. They almost got to the national title game too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move forward to the good of, unless there's more ugly you want to talk about. Let's talk about what we thought was good in the spring game. I know we talked a little bit about the receivers, but
I mean, I just want to say one thing about Carnell Tate, and then we're going to move on to the defense, because I think there was a lot of the defense I liked from what I saw from those different guys.
The running backs look good. So
yeah, I really like what I saw from the running backs. The receivers, I mean, they're not going to miss, as long as they can get to the ball to them, they're not going to miss the beat in the receiving core. And Carnell Tate is now a real threat. And that's where, and like we've talked about this before, Ballard could be somebody that ends up going. I know we probably should have mentioned him here at the beginning of the thing, but Carnell Tate, Ballard's been in the program for a few years, and Carnell Tate hasn't. And if Carnell Tate is that new shiny object that, for a lack of a better terms, that they're at the same level, then, that's kind of the spot where, like, well, let's go with the freshman.
I mean, he was doing something right. He was targeted quite a bit in that spring game. So he's obviously someone that the quarterbacks are comfortable throwing to.
Yeah. You could tell that they threw to him a lot in the practices, because he was targeted. He was looked for. McCord wasn't not throwing to him because, he just not comfortable with it. Obviously, McCord's hit Carnell Tate a couple times in practice this year because he felt comfortable finding him and going for him.
Jelani Thurman, I just want to say he is a dude, man. I know there's probably, as a tight end, there's probably, especially with Ohio State, I'm sure there's a couple things that he needs clean up before they're comfortable with him on the field, because they like their tight ends being finished products before they see the field. But man,
And there's a spot
that is a 6'6" dude.
And we've talked about that one too. There's a spot in the tight end room where they could lose somebody. I mean, it's not the deepest room in the world, but they do got players there. So I wonder if somebody might decide to leave.
I just feel like, and I'll say a name. I know we're kind of always up in the air about actually dropping names or that. I feel like Sam Hart's kind of blocked by Joe Royer. I mean, Joe Royer, I think, might be a little bit older than Sam Hart. I could be wrong on that, but I just feel like essentially they're the same player, and I don't know if there's room for both that type of player to see the field.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They're similar to G. Scott too. I think they might be more comfortable as tight ends than what G is, but G's been working, still working at it.
Yeah.
And I think I still have hope that he can make an impact, but who knows? He's always a name of someone that probably
he's a name there too, especially if Thurman. Him and Thurman could be at that spot too. He's been in the program for a few years. If Thurman and him, if they feel like they're equal, and it's kind of the same thing with Carnell Tate is it Thurman's opportunity at that point, and I would kind of say I would lean that way, that if everything's equal, that and give the young guy the shot. I mean, my feelings on that. So
I know people say like Bennett Christian, like he was more of a blocker, which I think there is a role in Ohio State for a guy that's more of a big body, punishing dude, but you never know how these things are going to shake out. So hopefully the room stays as strong as it possibly can, while getting us to the scholarship limit. But yes, Carnell Tate looked great. I want to make sure I have the right one. Noah Rogers had a big touchdown.
Yeah, I believe that was the one.
He lost the ball running, but he went back into his arms. So lucky break for the freshman, but it's still nice.
Hey,
nice explosive play he had.
It's something good that the coaches get to yell at him about. Been like,
sure.
Tuck that ball better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so offensively, outside the couple things we talked about, I thought they looked all right. I mean, I think there was a lot more doomsdayer people online than needed to be online, but that's Ohio State fans.
It's a spring game. You got an offensive MVP?
Yeah.
I would say Tate, I think.
I would say Tate, too. He was only out there one series.
Maybe Chip had the long touchdown.
I like Chip. I liked what I saw from Hayden. I'll probably say Tate. But I will say that, and I know he was really only out there for a series, maybe 2 series, but good luck this year, everybody, with Marv, because
I'm going to cover him anyway.
Like Marv, he looked like in full season form to begin with. I mean, he was catching everything was thrown to him. I mean,
Marv in the slot.
That guy starts learning. That guy could start playing slot. Like, I don't know. I don't even know what that means. Like, does that somehow some stupid guy that has done nothing for his entire career, which is going to have a couple decent catches this year, is going to win the Blitnikoff, though, because that's usually how that goes. So like, some guy from Pitt probably will win the Blitnikoff when it should be more, and when in reality it should be Marv Jr. But
I don't know. That's a scary thought of him, the safety getting Marv downfield, though.
No, I don't even think you could. You'd almost have to play the corner inside. If Marv's lining up on side, you got to put
you have to. I mean, that's not like, there's no safety in the
safety's got to go out to the outside. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, defense then. You go ahead and start. Just what do you like?
I mean, obviously, we talked about the ugly. I liked how the defensive line looked. I mean, I thought they did everything that they needed to do. We said it before the spring game, like, go after these guys because you needed to see where the offensive line was. I was glad that they did it. They were in a lot on those guys.
The defensive line need that mentality to attack again.
Yeah, and they do. They definitely do because, I think the back end we're going to be fine. It's just we need to get back into the mindset that we're going to start putting quarterbacks on their butts and sacking guys, and it's just everything helps everything. It's it makes the secondary look better. It makes the linebackers look better, you know. And I think that's what they need. And we kind of got in the mindset towards the, in the games that the defense looked subpar last year. Yeah, and I granted we were too aggressive against Michigan, but the defensive line wasn't getting to the damn quarterbacks. And so if maybe we wouldn't need to have been like blitzing as many guys and bringing so many, kitchen sink blitzes and, stuff like that. If some of that stuff, if they were getting to the players, and I guess I just remember in the original Rushman, the Bosa brothers, Chase. I mean, even you think back to 2014. I mean, you think about how many times Bennett and Adolphus and Steve Miller Band got it on guys, and it's like we're missing a little bit of a mindset. And these guys are really, really good, and like I want to get back to the thing is just get to the quarterback, man. That's it, and that's all you really need to think about, and just and make offensive quarterbacks. You're not playing, a number one first round draft pick. This is college football. This is not the NFL. Like in the NFL, you might have, you got to get a little bit more. You can't just rely on everything that you're going to go hit a quarterback because things are going to happen really fast. Those quarterbacks are used to letting things happen really fast in their mind. You're not, eight of the 12 guys you're going to play in the regular season, 9 of the 12 guys in your regular season can't do that. So like, get back to like, we're going to put somebody on their butt, and and it just seems like that is gone over the last couple seasons, and it's kind of hurt them in somewhat, I think, and I think that shows.
I mean, I feel like, and I'm not a pass rush specialist, so I could be completely off base here, but I feel like there has to be a little bit every now and then for a defensive end, especially one with as talented as what Ohio State gets, that you got to sometimes you have to be a little selfish. Sometimes you just have to say, hey, I'm rushing the passer. I'm going to take that gamble here because who knows what's going to happen. And I don't think it's ever hurt their defense before. Like with the guys you talked about, when Joey Bosa or Chase Young were like, hey, it's third down. Most likely this is a pass situation. My thought is I'm going to pass this tackle. I'm getting the quarterback. Like he's not thinking about what if this is a run, and it feels like there's just been too much apprehension the last 2 years, 3 years, whatever it's been, that they're like, hey, we got to hold up and see, what's going on with it. And they're not getting to the quarterback. And that's my opinion. I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm no pass rush specialist, but I just feel like that sometimes you got to just say go to this defensive line.
On third and long, if you get caught and they catch you on a screen pass, okay, it happens. Yeah. But like, I know, and I've kind of been one of those guys that said I wish Ohio State offensively would run more screens, but screens don't work as much as people like to think that they work. They especially when the quarterback is too rushed. And you got athletes on the outside of your defensive lineman that, like, you should be able to, I'm not saying sack the quarterback, but you should be able to just rush the quarterback just that second too early that the blocks are just not there yet. Even if they try to run a screen, somebody's going to be there to make that tackle because, you got Sawyer or you got JT are just breathing right down this guy's neck that he has to throw it just a half a second earlier than even he wants to throw it. Right. And the offensive line is just not in their places yet. And that's only on a screen. And a lot of times on third and long, the screen's not even considered. Some teams every now and then probably should consider it more, but a lot of teams just don't. And they're looking downfield, and so you have your opportunities there. So yeah, I really liked what I saw from the defensive line. Now, granted, the offensive line, we talked about that already, but I'm glad what they did. Moving on to the next level.
Yeah.
Hicks, my God. Like,
how do you keep him off the field? I mean, you have to have a plan to have that guy needs significant snaps. he's a game changer. He's
Yeah.
too athletic. I mean, he's too good.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he needs to start over Steel Chambers. Maybe he's better than Steel. But Steele's good enough. I think he should still start. I don't think there's a huge difference between the two. I could be wrong. But the guy's he has to play significant snaps on defense, not on special teams. I mean, he can do special teams too, but he needs to be out there as a linebacker. He is a game changer.
I said last year that you definitely 2 years ago, they rotated way too many people all over the field, and I was definitely against that. Linebacker is a position where you got to find the guys that work for you. But even in a 2 linebacker set, you can run 3 or 4 linebackers. And I think there's room for Cody Simon. I think there's room for Hicks. And you know what? Get them to learn both positions. And if there's a game you have to play with 3 linebackers, that's even better. Yeah. But if you're primarily going to play with those 2 positions, you can run that out of 4 players, and they should be able to find a rotation there where, those guys, that Hicks and Simon, if those are the 2, maybe it's Hicks and Powers. I don't know. Like, whoever the next 2 are should be able to get significant playing time. And I'm not talking about garbage time. I'm talking about that. What I saw from Hicks is that he is just too good not to be on the field. And he just brings something a little different, and
it's a lot different.
And can you imagine? And like I'm all on the Tommy train right now. Like, there is like nothing, like anything I thought about Tommy Eichenberg going into before last season. He answered every question for me last season, and so like I'm thinking, yeah. And I like Steele a lot, and I'm not saying necessarily Hicks needs to be your starter. But it could be a 1A, 1B type thing where, they kind of play equal amount of time. And because I'm kind of thinking right now, I'm not thinking about the damage necessarily Steele and Hicks can do together. I'm thinking about the damage that Tommy and Hicks can do together. And
right. But I mean, think about what Steele and Hicks can do too. I mean, that's
fair point.
Athleticism out there.
Fair point. And it's just. And that's why you need to get these guys on the field. It doesn't need to be 6, 7 deep and we got to rotate 6, 7 guys in. No, you can have a 3 or 4 man linebacker rotation and easily rotate those 4 guys out of 2 positions and be fine with it. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at this, because even if you go 3, what I saw from Hicks is there's no way that guy cannot play.
No, he needs significant snaps in the first half. Like, he needs to be on the second series or third series, whatever it is, but he needs to see the field a lot.
Yeah. Because I mean, the dude's gonna jump around and go for 6 on an interception this year. And so he's you can tell he plays instinctively, and that's something that they've and maybe that's just starting to catch up now that, for a lot of years, we weren't seeing instinctive play anymore at linebackers. And that could be a part that, Knowles knows what he's doing.
That's something we just haven't seen on defense in a while. Just instinctive dudes, Yeah.
And, that could be that the coaching staff is now starting to really gel together, that, Knowles has taught those linebackers better. Now you got a guy in there like James that knows what he's doing, that he really understands the finer parts of the linebacker position. And maybe you're starting to feel it too in the secondary, that Walton and Eliano are starting to come into their own, and they're starting to mesh with each other, because you're seeing a lot of great stuff from the
Walton's boys are the Walton gang back there, man. They're looking tough.
Yeah, I'm really feeling, again, spring game, our corners looked pretty good against our wide receivers in that spring game.
Yeah. We praised the receivers, but the corners might have won the day, and
that is the best receiving core that they're going to play all year. I don't think there's a question about that.
I mean, unless you get Alabama, I'm sure recruited really well at receiver or something.
I don't even know if those guys are as good as our receivers.
No, I mean, they're definitely not as good as Ohio State's, but there might be someone on Ohio State's level that they see down the road. But they're not going to play anyone as good as as a whole unit. It's the Buckeyes.
What I saw from those guys, from Burke, from Hancock, is You can play.
Igbenogson looked
Yeah,
good.
yeah. You can play a lot,
Diagram was okay.
but you're going to be able to play a lot this year that you're going to be able to do a lot of things with the linebackers and the safeties because you're going to be able to play man coverage on the outside.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be, I don't think that's really stretching it. Like those three guys, the kid from Mississippi and Burton, Hancock, that they're going to be lockdown corners, and that is fine. You for two corners, you easily can run three corners out there, and you find a decent rotation going in there, and you get Brown in there every time too, Jair, and that.
I mean, Jermaine Matthews looked okay, the freshman. I know
Yeah,
Calvin Simpson-Hunt, he's supposed to be a man-to-man specialist, so he's coming in the fall. I mean, who knows what type of significant playing time he'll get, but yeah, I mean, I like where Walton is as a coach. He definitely likes the man up type stuff, and that's the type of cornerback I like. So
yeah,
I'm good with that.
yeah, and so I really liked what I saw of that, and I liked what I saw from the safeties. They got depth there, and that's
Sonny, Proctor, yeah, they look good.
yeah, and I mean, is this going to be the year that really Proctor can stay healthy and really because he had another good spring game and like he's had a couple of those in the past,
It's
but
hard to trust a guy after that long because it's always just not clicked. And I don't know if it was fair last year, that he got pulled after one play and Ransom just never gave the job back. I mean, because
yeah,
Ransom, I mean, at the end of the day, he made some not horrible plays, but he had some mistakes against Michigan, and why didn't Proctor get to come back out? Maybe the moment was too big then, but I like what Proctor does, man. I think he's a ball hawk. I think he's a playmaker, but it's hard. I don't know. It's hard to trust him sometimes too, though. I mean, we're going on what, year 6?
yeah. The one last thing I just want to say about the secondary, and then we'll get moving on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That I think that I know it's just a spring game, but I think we saw something that they've had both of their coaches there for two seasons.
Yeah,
That they're
for
going
sure.
to. They looked like they were a lot more comfortable than what I felt like they looked last year, even in the spring game last year, and that there's been so much turnover in that coaching staff and that back end that it was refreshing. That I saw that it seems like that Walton and Eliano are speaking the same language. That it seemed like the safeties and the corners. I mean, again, just a spring game. Offensive line looked very suspect. McCord was he hasn't really played a lot. They look pretty good against our receivers. And so I think going forward, knowing that I'm assuming that they're going to get better as the more that they play together, that they're going to look really good this year against teams that don't have our receivers.
Right.
And so and maybe that lets Larry Johnson really put a foot up some of his guys' butts, been like, we got a really good secondary. Go hit that quarterback, man.
Right.
And that's just going to help the linebackers out too. And so I think and I know there was a lot of anger towards Knowles at the end of last season from a lot of Buckeye fans, but maybe it just seems like the coaching staff, it seemed like out of the two units, and we saw some impressive things on the offense. It seemed like out the two units that the defense was more crisper in the spring game. And I think that has a lot to do that entire coaching staff is basically now together for a second season. And yes, they're adding James in as a kind of an off the field coach right now, and he'll probably be a full coach here, hopefully in a year. But it's just adding another brain to the mix, and it seems like that Eliano and Walton know what Knowles wants in the back end, and it seemed like that they were really gelling is just the best way I can put it. That they're gelling together and they're just feeding off each other very well right now.
Yeah.
And I really want to look forward to see what that looks like in the season, because I think if that we haven't seen a competent secondary since 2019, and
Yeah.
like, and I know that's only sounds like that's just been a couple years ago, but if you think about it, we hadn't seen a competent secondary really prior to that until 2016, 2017 a little bit, but 2016 for sure. 2017 wasn't a bad secondary. 18 wasn't a great secondary, and 20 and 21 at different. I mean, in 22 there was some decent stuff in there at times, and then there was a lot to leave to be desired a lot of times.
Safety play for Ohio State's been pretty bad outside of 2019 for
so it's like
years now.
Like we just have not seen it, and the corners. And granted, we talked about it already that a lot of it has to do with the recruiting issues and the turnover and stuff like that. And we're just now really starting to catch up with the depth. And it seems like not only the depth and the talent are catching up. And so, and I think that's just a lot to do with Walton. And, unless somebody, I think this is a great opportunity because Tim Walton ain't going to go become a head coach somewhere in college football. Like, I just don't see that. And maybe he could get pulled back into the NFL somewhere if somebody wants him to be in the NFL.
Very true. Yeah.
And that could happen. You never know, but it seems like this is a guy at corner that they could keep for the next several seasons and, really a corner coach and should be able to develop some strong corners there. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. I can't agree more with what you've said.
Yeah. All right. Real quick. NFL drafts coming up starting tomorrow. It'll be this weekend. It's always a fun time of the year. Again, the NFL
for Buckeye quarterbacks. It is.
Yeah. Well, just real quick on the NFL, it just always seems like the NFL is light years ahead of the other leagues because the NBA playoffs are going on, and the biggest thing that's and Major League Baseball is going on, and the NHL playoffs. Biggest thing that's going to happen this weekend is the NFL draft, and it just seems like the NFL's always got whatever their big ticket items are up for on TV that they always they outdo everybody else. So I always love watching the draft. It's fun. And I'm still always looking forward to it. Tomorrow, it seems like, it kind of seems like Paris is probably going to be the first Buckeye off the board. Obviously, it seems like Stroud's kind of fallen some, but you never know.
Especially when it comes to quarterbacks, man. Someone could trade up. I mean, some people might be looking to move on. Like I've seen people talk about like Detroit. Is Goff still at Detroit, right? Like, are they really ready to move on from him? I mean, I'm not saying Goff's great by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he's a serviceable starter in the NFL. I don't know if he needs to be replaced already. I don't know. I mean, I cannot fathom that there's a universe where CJ Stroud isn't the second quarterback off the board, but I guess he doesn't have all the physical traits of Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. He just puts up numbers, but fuck, if he can't put up a bench press and run faster, what the hell? He can't be drafted. I'm sorry for the language. It baffles me. I mean, I've seen odds have dropped that Will Levis is going to be the number one pick in the draft. And
my only thing with
what universe, I caught myself that time. What universe are you living in that Will Levis, who's never done anything in college football, could be because he could throw 50 yards on his knees? I mean, we've seen this before. Jamarcus Russell did that, and
he could throw 75 yards on his knees.
And the guy busted out in a year, like 2 years, whatever it was. Like, don't try to be smarter than everyone else in the room. Just pick the guy that has put up numbers.
I don't know if it's my one thing about Levis is that there's always that guy that comes out of nowhere in that last week that's just a bunch of smoke. And is he the smoke? Like, is a bunch of people throwing him out there trying to, like, is Carolina trying to cause possibly? You think that they want to draft one of these guys because they traded up to get it, but maybe they're not enamored with any of them, and they think that maybe they could fall back a few positions and get somebody that, maybe they like CJ Stroud, but they think that they could get it Stroud at 4 or 5.
I don't know. I mean, they're going to take Bryce Young, and I don't know. I think he's too small to be an NFL quarterback. I really do. And I know
he might
changed, but it hasn't.
Like, again, like you said, it really hasn't. Like, yeah, there's guys, there's more athletic quarterbacks than there were used to be, but you got to have some sort of size on you. Like, even Kyler Murray, who's got some weight behind him, but he's been a little fragile and stuff.
Right.
This ain't it.
He was too small. I mean, he's kind of thick, but
there's no college like
this
isn't college, and you don't do some of the stuff that where you trick some of these guys out and like there's going to be plays where you trick a guy out from getting a sack on you, and then you get crushed at you get a 1 yard gain and get crushed, and where that might have been a 20-yard gain in college football. Exactly. But like the second guy through is just as the guy you faked out from getting the sack, the next guy coming through is just as good as him. I mean, it's just a different world. And like, I don't know. It's just weird to me. I know that I got the scarlet and gray bias glasses going on and stuff like that, but I just think CJ is better than if Bryce Young gets taken over CJ Stroud. I can live with that. The guy's won a Heisman. He's been a legitimate quarterback and on a legitimate team. I don't see which world Will Levis gets drafted before CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. To me, these are just guys that get. This is why the teams that are perennial losers are perennial losers, because it's like that's that kid that got taken a couple years ago over from the Niners, and the Niners aren't a perennial loser, but that was dumb. Like
Trey Lance, yeah.
That was stupid.
Well, I think Zach Wilson was worse than Trey Lance, though. I mean, that was
and it just seems like that. It's always like these teams get caught in their heads somehow, and again, it doesn't matter the turnover and the smart geniuses. There's a reason, and this is coming from Browns fans. There is a reason why the teams that are always picking towards the front it doesn't matter the new coach. It's the coach. It's the new flavor of the month with the coach. It's the new flavor of the month with the general manager. It's the new flavor of the month with the quarterback. But somehow they're always picking in the top 5. Like and a lot of these teams. That's what it seems like. And it always seems like, there's out of nowhere, there's a legitimate team that gets has a bad season and they draft early. And somehow that team is the one that always picks the best player. It's like, because I don't know if it's just a better mindset that when you're picking later in a draft, because it's like, you don't get the fortunes of seeing the Lamborghini. It's like, well, I got to go pick who the best linebacker in the draft is.
Right, yeah.
So maybe they just think about things a lot differently because they're used to being picking farther back. And, it's not necessarily who the quote-unquote best player or who quote-unquote the most gifted player is. It's just like, I need a really good linebacker. Here's the best linebacker in the draft. That's who we're drafting if he's there. And if not, the next best player we need actually a corner more than we need a linebacker in reality or whatever, then I'm going to pick that corner. But like, they actually think about stuff throughout. So I don't know. And I just think I know I'm rambling, but CJ Stroud should be higher than Will Levis. So
yeah, I just don't even remember a game I don't remember a game Will Levis played well against a good team, like Will Levis took Kentucky to this win, or almost did, but they're Kentucky, but he kept them in the game the whole time. Like,
is he the one that looked okay against us in the one when he came in, right?
Honestly, the best game he ever played was as a backup coming in for Sean Clifford against Ohio State.
Yeah. which the game we weren't gonna lose. So like,
Yeah, I mean, he played good. I'm not gonna, he had a. I don't know. I don't know. I I'm baffled by all of it, man.
yeah.
But they're smart. I mean, they're much smarter than me. They're general managers or whatever. Who knows? Who knows what the hell's going to happen? CJ didn't do himself any favors though, because that cognitive test scores came out. He said, what do you say? I'm not a test taker or whatever." And CJ, he was a little hurt by all the talk.
I
And
think CJ, the one thing CJ does need to, he needs to find himself a good PR person, and
yeah,
he needs to take some media 101 classes. I mean, I could have told you that from Ohio State. When
he
you like,
wasn't wrong. He pretty much told him watch the tape.
yeah, but it's like when he came out and said that, like,
I'm not a running back.
and made his comments about the snow up in Ann Arbor. It's like, so yeah, he needs to. You're gonna be making good money wherever you get drafted. Hire yourself a media guy that can teach
Yeah,
you the ropes how to do the media, like, because that's important. And media guys will. You're gonna say stupid stuff to them, and that gets played a lot over and over and over again. And if you're not doing as well as you want to be doing, that stuff, fans start really paying way too much attention to some of that stuff because they don't think you're good enough. So yeah, he could definitely help use one of those. Seems like Paris. There's still a lot of talks that Arizona might be singling him out at number 3. Seems like he's going to be the first Buckeye off the board. Which we'll see. Um, I mean, if it happens, I mean, Paris is going to be a phenomenal NFL player, in my opinion. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
that's I definitely don't see that as a reach wherever he goes. I easily could see him as a top 5 player. Especially, I think he would be a great fit for Arizona if the plan going is to keep Kyler for the time being. Then it doesn't hurt putting some big beef on his
No,
outside.
a good athletic tackle in
Yeah,
front
so that's smart.
of him. Okay, who do you have first round for Buckeyes? So obviously Paris. CJ is going to go somewhere in the first round.
Yeah, because there's gonna be at a point there's gonna be a run on the quarterbacks, and even if CJ slides, he's not sliding out after the first. Um, I mean that's it, Fry for them, right?
JSN.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah. I actually I see all 3 of them going in the top 15, and then I don't know if we see any others in the first, maybe.
Dawand is so interesting. I still think with his size, someone takes a gamble maybe late in the first round on him. Because, like, I mean, the Bengals probably could use the help still on the offensive line. Um,
It's somebody that's not the Browns, even though I don't think the Browns have a first round pick. It's somebody that's
they
going to
have
be.
a second round pick.
It's going to be. It's if he goes to the first round, it's obviously going to be some in the AFC North because the other 3 teams all put the Buckeye players in front of the Browns. So, like, I can see Cincinnati, I can see Pittsburgh, I see Baltimore. Like,
I think he could do well in the AFC North. I mean, Dawand, he probably needs to get a little bit tougher for the NFL, but I think he could be successful. But I could see him going in the first round because I think his size and speed intrigues people.
yeah. I think he'll fall to the second, but it wouldn't surprise me if he got taken in the second half of the first round.
And that got to be a good pitch for Justin Fry if he can get 2 tackles in the first round.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That would definitely help. Um,
And we need the Buckeyes need to be able to use that pitch.
oh yeah,
Desperately, they need to be able
they
to.
need to sell that because
They need to get some tackles in that room.
um, outside of Dawand, so I think the 3 for sure are going in the first round. Dawand possibly could be a fourth. After that, I don't know where everybody's really fallen. Like Whippler, I think will probably be in second day somewhere.
I could see a third round pick for him.
Possibly early third day. I think he'll be third or fourth round. But
Harrison, that's an intriguing one.
it is. He's a very what if guy. He's a guy that very easily could have been a first round pick. He just never really. He always showed flashes. It was just never there.
Great against the run.
He could be a second day guy. I think he could be a third rounder. He could be a third or fourth round. Which is third day. I think him and Whippler will kind of be in that same zone.
Yeah,
probably.
I agree with that.
Trying to think
if he was healthy enough to run, I think he could have helped himself because he put up a 4.5 40. That would have looked really, really impressive. But that is what it is.
Brown.
Cam.
Yeah. Where do we think he's?
He didn't run well, and I mean that was what he had going for him. I think everyone knows he's fast, though. 40s are weird. I don't know. I mean, probably 6th, 7th round for him if drafted. I'm going to say undrafted free agent.
He might get one. He might get lucky that the reputation of Ohio State secondaries might come and push him somewhere in that thing.
I think he's undrafted. Hickman's probably late. I think he'll get drafted, but he'll be a late pick. Yeah. I don't this could be one of the quieter drafts for Ohio State recently.
Yeah.
But it should be a good first round, I would think. 3 to 4.
Yeah, I would say that. I agree with that. All right. Anything else you want to hit tonight?
Just thank everyone for putting up with, me being sick over here. But no, I mean, I'm good is there anything you want to talk about?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for stopping in tonight to the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
IO.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added. And please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking and we want to know what content to add for you guys. OH.
IO.